Hello, welcome to another episode on RINI ROSE Creative Cafe. I hope you're doing great. There are some unspoken rules we live by, not only for women, but also for men. We rarely speak about the emotional suppression faced by men. Generally, we consider the suppression and concerns of women, but many are not spoken about, and that leads to incredible truth. Today's episode is going to explore these. What are boundaries really? We need to understand first. We hear the word boundaries everywhere these days, on social media, in self-help books, and in therapy reels. Most of the time, we talk about personal boundaries like saying no to extra work, setting limits with toxic friends, or stepping away from draining relationships. But there's a deeper, quieter layer to this conversation that we rarely address: the unwritten boundaries imposed on us by society. From the day we are born, society draws invisible lines around who we are allowed to be, how we are expected to feel, and how far we are permitted to grow. We are taught that crossing these societal boundaries will lead to judgment, isolation, or shame. And the saddest part, we don't just let society set these boundaries. We start enforcing them on each other. We become the very gods, keeping ourselves and those around us trapped inside those narrow lines. First, let's see the unseen pressure on women. When women tear down women. Let's look at how this plays out for women first. For decades, women have fought hard to push back against rigid societal rules. They've demanded equal space in careers, freedom of personal choice, and the right to live life on their own terms. But while we often talk about systematic barriers, there is an uncomfortable truth we frequently overlook. The deepest wounds often come from within our own society. Instead of lifting each other up, women are often conditioned to compete with, judge, and criticize one another. Think about how often a woman is judged for choosing her career over marriage, not just by society, but by other women in her family or circle. Think about how a stay-at-home mother might be made to feel inferior by working women, or how a woman who chooses not to have children is labeled selfish by her own peers. Why does this happen? Because when a woman spends years internalizing strict societal boundaries, seeing another woman break free from those same boundaries can feel like a threat. It triggers an unconscious reaction. If I had to conform and sacrifice, why should she get to be free? This backlash isn't always loud or aggressive. Sometimes it looks like casual gossip, passive-aggressive comments, or subtle exclusion, but the result is the same. Instead of acting as a sanctuary for one another, women end up policing each other's boundaries, reinforcing the very cages they want to escape. Now, what about the silent struggle of men? That is emotional suppression. Now let's look at the other side of the coin, because society's boundaries do not spare men. There is a common misconception that societal expectations only restrict women, while men enjoy absolute freedom. But the reality is that society draws incredibly strict, unforgiving boundaries around manhood. From a very young age, boys are handed a script. Be strong, don't cry, provide, protect, never show weakness. If a boy cries when he's hurt, he's told to man up. If a young man expresses vulnerability, fear, or anxiety, he's often met with uncomfortable silence or ridicule. Society constructs a boundary around male emotion, trapping men inside a box where the only acceptable emotions are confidence, strength, and anger. When you force a human being to suppress their grief, their pain, and their fear for years, where does all that emotion go? It doesn't disappear. it turns inward. It manifests as chronic anxiety, loneliness, deep-seated resentment, or severe mental health struggles. Men are taught that asking for help is a sign of failure. They're expected to carry immense financial, emotional, and social burdens without ever flinching. And when they finally break under the weight, society acts surprised. Just as women are conditioned to police other women, men are conditioned to enforce these rigid emotional boundaries on other men, calling each other weak or soft for simply being human. Now, how can we reclaim our boundaries? So, how do we break this cycle? How do we start setting real boundaries? Not just against toxic individuals, but against these harmful societal scripts. It begins with unlearning. For women, true support means celebrating another woman's freedom. Even if her choices look completely different from yours, freedom means having the right to choose whether that choice is to build a corporate empire, raise a family, remain single, or travel the world. Sisterhood isn't about agreeing on everything. It's about protecting each other's right to choose without judgment. For men, emotional courage is real strength. Breaking society's boundaries for men means giving yourself and other men permission to feel, to grieve, to fail, and to ask for help. A real friend doesn't tell a struggling man to man up. He listens, supports, and creates a safe space where vulnerability isn't treated as a weakness. Setting boundaries with society means deciding that your worth is not determined by how well you fit into an outdated mold. It means realizing that you don't owe anyone a life that feels heavy just to make them feel comfortable. What about the conclusion? That is building a compassionate world. At the end of the day, boundaries shouldn't be wall-like barriers that push people away. They should be healthy guidelines that allow us to live authentically and treat others with dignity. We need to stop acting as unpaid enforcers of society's oldest, most restrictive rules. We need to stop tearing down people who have the courage to live differently. And we need to stop expecting people to suffer in silence just to appear strong. The moment we grant ourselves permission to step outside these artificial boundaries, we automatically grant permission to everyone around us to do the same. Because a truly free individual doesn't build cages for others. They help break them down. God bless. See you in the next episode. Thank you.